Hey, baby, it is season 2, episode 16 of Heavy Theology.
It is, and I'm so excited about our number of subscribers.
Me too.
We have over 18,500 subscribers. Thank you, Lord, through Jesus Christ. And if you guys have an idea or a suggestion for a topic or a question, please don't hesitate to contact us.
Absolutely. We want to hear all that you have to say. Well, most of what you have to say, as long as it's positive. You can keep that negative stuff to yourself. Well, I want to tell our listeners about a very special live event that we're going to be hosting here at Crow Coffee Lounge on Friday, May 22nd from 6 to 8 p.m. here in Yuma, Colorado at Crow Coffee Lounge. We are hosting our very first live Q&A event. We'd like to invite you to come out. It's just a time to get to know Pastor Jamie and myself. You can ask questions about anything that you would like to ask. We are an open book, so come on out. Join us for an awesome evening. And if that event goes well, we'll do it again in August, and you'll actually get the chance to be on our podcast with us.
Yeah, so please join us, May 22nd.
Yeah, that'll be a good time. Well, last week we talked about portals, and if you missed that episode or any of our past episodes, I invite you to check them out. If you like what you see or hear there, please take a moment to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on future episodes of Heavy Theology. And today, we're talking about seances.
Don't talk to dead people.
Don't talk to dead people. I wonder how many times we'll say that.
I don't know.
All right, so seances. Are you ready for some research?
I would love to hear some research.
Awesome. Well, what are they? They're gatherings where people attempt to communicate with the spirits of the dead. The word seance comes from the French word for sitting or session. And much like the Ouija board, the seance requires 3 core components: a medium, a sitter, and a manifestation. Now, the medium is the person who acts as a conduit between the spirit world and the physical realm. And the sitters are the participants who provide the collective energy or vibration that's necessary for the spirits to manifest. And the manifestation could be anything from knocking, vocal sounds, movements, anything that would indicate that the spirit has indeed been contacted. Now, there's often multiple proofs that a medium has been successful and a manifestation has occurred. And these can include anything from table tilting or turning, vocal utterances from the medium from a trance-like state, and these are said to be while they are under the control of a spirit. Automatic writing, and this is where the medium's hand moves involuntarily, and it's said to, again, be under the control of a spirit, and this is used to convey the spirit's message. Well, in the 1800s, they even had spirit trumpets, and this was a metal cone. Yeah, isn't that crazy? This was a metal cone that was much like a cheerleader's megaphone, and they were used to amplify the whispers of ghosts in the room. And this was actually considered to be a pretty sophisticated piece of spiritual technology from the 1800s to the 1930s.
Good thing there's not any type of sophisticated ghost technology today.
I know, not at all.
There's no ghost box or EVP readers or any of that.
And we have episodes about that as well.
Woohoo!
Well, this is when seances really reached their height in popularity, and this was during the spiritualist movement. This was a time when the veil between the living and the dead was said to be very thin. Death was a part of everyday life, and you could almost reach out and touch it, and it made sense that because it was ever present, you could communicate with those who had passed on. Now, I think this stemmed from grief and desperation.
I agree.
Yeah, we've all been there. We've
Yes.
all lost a loved one, and if you have lost a loved one, you know how desperately you would love to talk to them just one more time, especially if that loved one has passed away from extraordinary or violent circumstances, much like many of the men during the Civil War and World War I. Now, these wars left millions dead and families desperate for closure, and the idea of a seance seemed to offer a way to get that closure. And spiritualists didn't really see their craft as magic or the occult. They viewed what they were doing as a branch of science. They believed that spirits could use a different frequency to communicate with the living, and if it's science,
It must be true.
It must be true.
It must be true.
Well, remember in the Ouija board episode, we talked about the Fox sisters. All right. Well, this is where the modern day seance really took shape. In 1848 in Hydesville, New York, three sisters, Leah, Margaret, and Catherine Fox, claimed that they were in direct communication with a spirit in their home. Now, they claimed that the spirit communicated with them through sets of knocks or rappings. Now, this part I do believe. I do believe that the spirit realm can communicate with the living through raps and knocks. I have experienced that. I do not believe they were dead people. Now, this claim really struck a chord with desperate and grieving families. If there was a way to communicate with deceased loved ones, they wanted in on it. Now, remember, this was a time when children often didn't live to see their 5th birthday. In fact, the first 5 years of life were considered a filter of childhood. And infant mortality, or the death of babies under the age of 1, was about 150 to 300 babies per 1,000 births. And location was a huge factor. In some parts of our country, nearly half of all children died before they reached the age of 5.
And in this Victorian period, it seemed like it was the upper crust,
Yeah.
the social elite. And it's also the same today.
Yeah.
A lot of your Hollywood movie stars still do this necromancy or tarot cards or see a psychic or what have you.
Yeah,
So some things just never change.
Yeah.
Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun. People are the same. Well, during this time, women also often died during childbirth. And the diseases that we're plagued with today, like heart disease and cancer, well, people in the 1800s, they didn't live long enough to die from these diseases. Instead, they had to contend with horrific diseases that were beyond scary, like cholera, for example. Cholera could kill a healthy individual within 24 hours. You could be fine at breakfast and dead by dinner.
Oof.
Yeah. So there was no time to prepare yourself or have any kind of closure when it came to the death of a loved one. I mean, it was just really, really quick. And then, of course, there was typhoid, which was spread much like the common stomach virus is today. And it was a slower death, but it could wipe out entire families. It was just a different time back then, and death was just different for these people. And by the 1850s, almost every adult had lost a child, a sibling, or a parent prematurely. So death felt like a constant, although unwelcome, companion. So it made sense that these people would long to reach out to their loved ones.
It does, yeah.
But unfortunately, where there is vulnerability, there's also the risk of exploitation. And that's exactly what happened here. There were a lot of fraudulent mediums who faked a lot of phenomena associated with the proof of having connected with the spirit realm. They would use hidden wires or pulleys to move tables or objects around the room. Or they would knock their toes to mimic rapping sounds. They'd even go as far as swallowing these large amounts of cheesecloth, which they would then regurgitate as proof of ectoplasm, meaning that they had been possessed by a spirit. They would sometimes use animal tissue or egg whites mixed with soap so that if someone were to touch the ectoplasm, it felt more organic. So as these tricks became more prevalent, some mediums tried to prove that they were the real deal. And they would allow their hands and feet to be tied by one of the sitters in the room. And then when it was dark, they'd shift their hands so that the person on their right and the person on their left were actually holding the same hand. Now, think about that. It's dark. There are 3 hands. You only have sensation in one of those hands. There's a lot of confusion. You're focused on communicating with your dead loved one. You're not going to notice what's what. You feel fingers. You assume you're holding the hand of the medium. Well, with 2 people holding the medium's left hand, that right hand was free to ring bells or move pulleys or knock or whatever else. And the fraud often began well before the seance took place. Mediums would do what they call graveyard crawls. And this is where they'd visit local cemeteries and read gravestones. And they'd pay close attention to the names, the dates, and the epitaphs of the recently deceased. And their assistants would accidentally overhear conversations in the waiting room so that they could gather specific details about sitters' lost loved ones. And then there's the coup de grace, the Blue Book. And this was a book that was passed around by a network of mediums. It was a directory of frequent seance goers and all the info about their deceased loved ones that they were desperate to contact.
Life insurance would call those prospects.
I gotcha. That works. Well, even the Fox sisters admitted they were frauds, but it was about 40 years after things began. So by the time they admitted that they had been, cracking their toes on the floor and their ankles up against the side of the table to make the knocking sounds, it was too late. The movement had already took hold, and many refused to abandon their beliefs. And as you mentioned, some very prominent people bought into this.
Yeah.
Mary Todd Lincoln often held seances in the Red Room of the White House after her son Willie passed away. And it said that President Lincoln also attended some of these, but he always remained a skeptic. And then, of course, there was Harry Houdini. And he spent the latter part of his life trying to debunk mediums. Now, he had lost his mother, and he was devastated by that loss, and he really wanted to believe. But he knew too much about stage magic, and so he could see through all of their tricks. And in fact, he debunked quite a few mediums in his time. So he actually gave his wife, Bess, a code, and he promised that if communication were possible, he'd send her a message from beyond the grave. And that message would have been, Rosabelle, answer, tell. So for 10 years after his death, Bess held a seance on the anniversary of his death, but the message never came. But is it possible to contact the dead? Well, I believe the Bible tells us not to. It doesn't say we can't. It just says don't. So is it possible?
I believe that it is, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The actual dead, do you think?
Well, so this is debated among scholars. The necromancer in the Old Testament, when Saul went to them, the witch of Endor, she called back Samuel from the dead.
Oh, right.
And Saul had a conversation with Samuel. So I think that it's a possibility.
Right.
I would think that it probably doesn't happen. It's probably the demonic masquerading.
Okay.
I think that was a one-off, a one instance.
Sure.
But there is scriptural evidence that it is possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I knew that we were told not to.
Yeah.
Don't talk to dead people.
Don't talk to dead people.
But it doesn't say that we can't.
Right.
So,
Can't talk
and
to
then
dead people,
obviously
yeah.
that was that was evidence that we could.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 1944, Helen Duncan became one of the last people prosecuted under the British Witchcraft Act of 1735. Helen was a medium, and during a seance during World War II, she revealed that the British warship, the HMS Barham, had been sunk. And here's the thing, that ship had been sunk, and the government had not announced it to the public yet.
Wow.
So the military was so shaken by her revelation that they actually jailed her so that she couldn't reveal any more state secrets via the spirit world.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Crazy. Mm-hmm.
Well, one might think these kinds of vulnerabilities were reserved for people living 170 years ago, but people today still hold seances, and they seek the help of mediums today. In fact, there are traditional spiritualist churches or spirit circles even today, and their focus is providing evidence of survival after death. And yes, I said survival after death. As a growing trend in some major cities, they have what's called seance dinners or dinner with the dead. And these are very high-end experiences. So they're actually kind of interesting. They combine atmosphere and history and storytelling, along with some stage magic and some genuine attempts to contact the dead. And they serve you a multi-course meal to boot. So it's kind of like dinner theater with a little extra something that you might not want. But, or maybe you do want, I don't know. I mean, I would say these run between $150 to $350 per person. So, yeah. Well, then there's the gallery reading, and you can get a gallery reading in a large room with 50 or more people. And here, a medium will give random messages to a few people. These run between $40 and $100 per person. Or if you prefer to be conned in the comfort of your own home, you could have a medium come to you for a traditional seance session for $250 to $800. And if you would like to prefer your exploitation virtual, There are mediums who hold Zoom seances. These mediums say that spiritual energy isn't bound by space and they can connect through webcams the same way that you and I can. Or if you prefer something a little classier, you can enlist the help of a celebrity medium for $1,000 to $5,000 if you don't mind being placed on a very lengthy waiting list.
Of course.
Now, mediums claim their services are just as valuable as those of a therapist or a doctor, and their time and energy should be compensated. But skeptics, and believe it or not, I'm one of them, argue it's exploitation at its most egregious. So give us some heavy theology on the matter.
I'm glad you asked. So in answer to your question, can we talk to the dead? I think it's possible. I don't think it happens. Mm-hmm. I think it's always the demonic masquerading as a dead person and a seek to possess somebody. Mm-hmm. Scripture is clear that you can talk to the demonic, that we just shouldn't do it. And never talk to the dead people because you don't know for sure who you're talking to. Mm-hmm. Shemayaza was one of the watchers that was assigned to the earth. And he was the commander of 200 other watchers in the book of Genesis. And so he was in charge of the spiritual realm of the earth and making sure that God's plan was carried out in the spiritual realm and that man was held accountable for carrying out his part of subduing and multiplying and subduing the earth. Well, Shemahaza fell in love with the daughters of man. And so on Mount Hermon, he gathered his 200 watchers, and they made a pact. He was afraid that if he took a daughter of man as a wife and started having children, and by himself, he would take all the punishment by himself. So he and 200 of his under his command made a pact, and they all took the daughters of men as wives. And this, of course, created the Nephilim and brought about the flood. And the consequence was God cast them all, forbid them all from re-entering heaven. And they were bound to the spiritual and physical realms here on earth. And the majority of them, probably 9/10 of them, were bound and thrown into Sheol to await the judgment. And we know that Enoch was sent down then to proclaim the judgment to them. So when Jesus descends into the dead, he once again declares victory over them. So Shemayaza, of course, is angry that he was cast out of heaven. So he creates revenge. So he and one of his underdemons, Armaros, come and teach mankind all kinds of wicked things. There were several others that taught several other wicked things. But these particular gentlemen taught mankind sorcery, enchantments, and spells, mm-hmm. and magic, mm-hmm. and necromancy. Uh-huh. And medicine by cutting and mixing roots. Okay. So this was considered forbidden knowledge that only angels had, and either that God did not want man to have or did not yet want man to have.
Sure.
So the necromancy, or speaking to the dead, comes from demons, fallen angels, mm-hmm. and it was forbidden knowledge. Forbidden because it corrupted the division between the physical and the spiritual realm. Mm-hmm. And the Nephilim, of course, crossed that boundary and created products of, or beings that are half spiritual, half physical. So don't talk to dead people.
Don't talk to dead people.
And Scripture is clear about this. In 1 Timothy it says, "Now the Spirit expressly says that in later times some will depart from the faith by devoting themselves to deceitful spirits and teachings of demons." 2 Corinthians, Paul tells us, "And no wonder, for even Satan disguises himself as an angel of light." Revelation talks about the fate of these folks, but as for the cowardly, faithless, detestable, for the murderers, the sexually immoral, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars, their portion will be in the lake of fire and sulfur, which is the second death. And Ephesians warns us, don't give the devil an opportunity. Mm-hmm. Okay? So I looked into necromancy, and I looked in to see if there would be a comparable séance in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. And there was in Babylon.
Oh, wow.
And Nebuchadnezzar at this time collected all of the dark arts and all of the magic and all of the spiritual forces and so forth. This particular ritual was not like the Victorian séance. Okay. It was conducted by a priest or priestess instead of a amateur medium.
Right.
It was for the purpose of either healing physical diseases thought to be caught by spirits or gaining political knowledge and so forth.
Oh, wow.
Instead of proof that there is the afterlife, like in the Victorian world.
Wow. So the Fox sisters did not invent the seance.
They did not invent the seance.
Ah.
They called it a seance.
They invented the con.
The con, right? Yeah. And the people would write letters to the dead people, and they would write letters to the dead on bowls or cups, because one of the reasons why they thought the dead were restless is because they weren't fed or cared for. So they would offer food sacrifices with a letter to a dead person written on it at their graves. Mm-hmm. Okay. And they delivered them and left them beside the tombs. The intent was to have the ancestor bestow upon them secret knowledge or secret wisdom, or everything that they had gathered. There was also this ritual of the skull. And in the ritual of the skull, in Babylon, they would use not a Ouija board or a crystal ball, they would use a human skull.
Oh.
So Shemayaza was thought to be the one that would travel then to the realm of the dead and bring the spirit back and place it in the skull. So then they would have the conversation with the person in the skull. And it would be the necromancer, the priest or priestess, that would communicate and deliver the message.
Oh, wow.
So there very well could have been conversations with dead people, according to the ancient Hebrews and ancient Babylonians.
Wow.
and the Near East.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. So the intent was, again, just to heal people that they thought that were diseased because of demons. A couple of the other differences were the specialist, of course, like I said before, was a medium in the 19th century seance, an amateur, and the specialist in the Babylonian times was a professional priest or priestess.
Sure.
The atmosphere of the 19th century seance was a darkened room and holding hands and wrappings. The Babylonian necromancy were ritual sites, burning incense and anointing oils. They would anoint these skulls with oils that would make it enticing for the spirit to come in. I'm not for sure what kind of oil they used, but
Right.
And then the 19th century seance would be Ouija boards, trumpets,
Sure.
and automatic
Oh,
writing.
you found out about the trumpets
Yep.
too.
Mhm.
Nice.
And then, of course, the Babylon necromancy was the human skull or libations of cool water or flower circles. And they would write messages in the flower circles.
Oh, much like the automatic writing that was done. Wow.
Then the goal, of course, as we talked about, the 19th century seance was the comfort or proof of the afterlife and entertainment.
Or fraud.
Or fraud, yeah. The Babylonian necromancy sought to solve crimes or cure ghost-induced illnesses. Now, in his theory of warfare worldview, Boyd states that some diseases can be caused by the demonic. And those are the diseases that Jesus heals. You see, Jesus comes and performs these exorcisms. Sometimes he casts out the demon and the person is physically healed.
Sure.
Sometimes he rebukes,
Right.
right?
Right.
The illness. And so
Sure.
it's a demon
Yeah.
that's causing this. Or demons can cause weather-related instances.
Sure.
This is why tragedies happen. And the instance is Jesus goes into the storm and he rebukes the storm.
Right. He calms the
So
storm.
yeah, so the
right.
storm was, somebody rebukes it. So the storm was being caused by the demonic.
Wow.
Now, not all illnesses, not all natural disasters are
Right.
caused by demons. Some of them are just because of a sinful world and the nature,
The right nature.
you know,
Yeah.
nature, the way it operates. But demons can be involved in such things. So they have more power than what we had originally anticipated. But the talking to the dead is not a new thing by any stretch of the imagination. Just don't do it.
Yeah. Don't talk to dead people.
Don't talk to dead people.
Wow. Well, have you ever had a deceased loved one try to contact you?
I have.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Oh, my word.
I was, my grandpa Strickler had passed away, and I was living with my grandma Strickler, and I was staying in my grandpa's bedroom because he was passed away and they had separate bedrooms, because I was working out of town and my office was closer to her house, 2 hours closer than my mom does.
Sure.
And in the middle of the night, I even called my mom and dad in the middle of the night. My grandfather came and sat next to me on the bed,
Oh.
and it was a white blob, and assured that he was in heaven.
Oh.
And I was terrified the rest of the night and couldn't sleep.
Right. Do you believe it was him?
I do not.
Okay.
I do not. I believe that I don't think it was an angel coming to bring comfort. I think it was something that was trying to seek, possession of me.
Sure, an
To-
opening,
an opening, yeah,
sure,
an opening.
sure.
Because they always come as comfort. like the fraudulent seek the recently deceased. I think they come upon that naturally from the demonic.
I gotcha.
You know, I think it's the same scheme.
I gotcha.
I think it's the same
gotcha.
term. How about you?
No, I had some dreams after my dad passed away, and they were very, very comforting. But no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think
No,
so.
I was definitely awake, and it was real.
Wow.
And I could still see it to this day. It was just a white shape, but I knew it was him, kind of thing. I don't know. It's just weird.
Wow. What did your mom and dad say?
They, of course, at the time, we weren't aware of all this other stuff.
Sure.
And so they just thought that it was him to be comforted, to,
Wow.
you know, to share with us to comfort us that he'd been saved and that he was in
Wow.
heaven. And
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's awesome. Did it bring you peace, or did it just really
it didn't.
scare you?
It brought me really turmoil. I'm thinking that at least at that point, God was allowing my conscience to be afflicted to protect me.
I got you.
Now, I think people, when they are originally approached by these things, or talk to these things, or have these encounters, I think they're conflicted. I really do. But as Scripture talks about, if we continue to sin, we become kind of numb to it.
Sure.
And so I wasn't at that point yet.
I got you.
And so I completely did not talk to it or speak to
Oh,
it or,
wow.
or
Yeah.
continue to have communication
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I don't blame you. That's kind of scary for sure. Yeah. As far as modern day seances, I'm going to be honest with you, for your reality check for the week, I don't believe it as far as I can throw this table. I think it's absolute exploitation.
Yeah.
Like I said, I believe that you can communicate with entities, but I don't believe that they're our loved ones.
Yeah.
I really don't. I think that there's something else. And as for seances, I think there's something else that I can't say in the podcast without getting an expletive rating. So I'll just won't say anything.
Yeah.
But
But there's a lot of it at the cattle lots here in Colorado.
Yes. At first, I thought you were talking about seances.
No.
And I thought, oh my word, what are they doing? But no, he's talking about what I would call seances.
What you call seances,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Well, good deal. This is a good episode. This is a
was.
lot of information. I find a lot of times I'll go into my research each week having an opinion, and then researching and my opinion completely shifting.
Yeah.
And I found that definitely with the Ouija board, and a little bit with this one too.
There seems to be a constant theme in the spiritual realm, right? Are all seances real? No. Are some? Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, are all demonic possessions real? No. Are some?
Absolutely.
Are all sicknesses caused by demons? No. Are some?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's kind of, we need to treat whatever it is as a holistic approach from all matters. Like when I'm dealing with somebody who's been diagnosed as mentally ill, and that's one of our questions on our questionnaire, history of mental diagnosis. We don't assume that it's just the mental illness, but we insist that they continue their medication and seeing their psychiatrist. And in addition, we give them some spiritual support. We treat it as a whole.
Right.
Because we probably will never really know the exact source.
Sure. Sure. Do you think the demonic preys on people who are mentally ill?
I do.
Okay.
I do, because I think they have a little bit of altered version of reality.
Sure.
I think the demonic prey on people who are mentally ill. I think the demonic prey upon people with low self-esteem.
Sure.
I think the demonic prey upon people who have been violently, physically, or verbally abused.
Oh, yeah.
I think the demonic prey upon people who had parents that were sexually promiscuous. I believe that the demonic prey on people that were sexually molested.
Wow.
I believe that demonic prey upon all kinds of folks.
Sure.
Because those types of deep trauma-causing sins give them a foothold.
Sure.
Or an in.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotcha. That makes them vulnerable, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
It makes them
Through
vulnerable.
no fault of their own.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
And I think what you'll find is everybody has at least one of those.
Yeah.
In some form or
Yeah.
another.
So we're all kind of vulnerable.
We're all kind of vulnerable.
Yeah. Well, next week I want to talk about spirit photography.
Oh.
I thought that would be a neat topic.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of that on Facebook and Reddit.
There is. There's a lot. People
A lot of
think-
it has to do with the stuff that's found in the cattle lots here in Colorado.
I think so too. Especially now, there's so much that you can fake. But yeah, I'll get into some research and see what we can find before the days of AI and photoshopping techniques.
Oh,
and,
yes.
Yeah, and we'll go from there. Yeah, this was a good one.
It is. You did a really great job, Miss Bree. I'm
Well,
always
thank you.
impressed how quickly you gather and organize information.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And I will concede that probably 18,500 of our 18,579 subscribers watch for you.
Well, I'll take that compliment. You guys don't have to tell us otherwise. All right. Well, thank you to Trent and Jackie for allowing us to use their beautiful facility here at Crow Coffee. Thank you to Shane over at Hive and Pulpit for his excellent editing abilities. And we'll do it again next week.
See you then, guys.
Bye, guys.